Okay, it's time. Let's talk about The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. Hi guys, welcome back, bienvenue and all that jazz. It's time to talk about The Jasmine Throne by Miss Tasha Suri. So this is a new favorite, I would say, that I recently read. As usual, this will be completely spoiler-free, but today we are talking all about The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This will be my usual review format. I'll give you general thoughts, feelings, how I felt about the book, a general pitch, and then we'll split off into the three sections of world building and magic, plot, and characters. So without further ado, let's jump in. So my general feelings of The Jasmine Throne are, I love it. So if you don't know anything about The Jasmine Throne, this is an Indian-inspired adult epic fantasy where we follow two main perspectives. There's a little bit of a third perspective that I think will become more important in the second book. But we follow Malini, who is the princess of the Parijati Empire. And in the very prologue, so I'm not spoiling anything for you, her brother tries to ritually sacrifice her by having her burn herself alive, and she refuses to do it. So he sends her off to be imprisoned to try to convince her to burn herself alive or to just let her slowly rot. And so she's sent to this small kind of subjugated area of their empire where there used to be this religious temple, but something happened. And so she's basically imprisoned in this cool, very atmospheric, spooky, mystical temple. And when we're there, we find Priya, who seems to have some ties to this mysterious temple. We don't totally know what they are, but she is this very giving person who tries to use any of her salary to help the people around her who are afflicted by the blight. And so the blight seems to be this mystical thing that can cause plants to grow inside of people, and it will slowly kill them. And it also is blighting like crops and trees, and it makes them smell of like rotted meat. And there are some body horror elements to this magical system, but it's very nature-y magic. And Priya is a servant or house cleaner, maid type person for the kind of regent of the area, and the regent has a wife known as Bhumika, and Priya and Bhumika seem to know each other somehow. We don't totally know all of the information about that, and Bhumika is a native to this area who is trying to do the best she can for the people that are around her. And so this is a very slow burn political fantasy. We do expand, there is action in the latter half of the book, but it is this very fascinating character study of Malini and the things that she learned growing up as a ruler, and maybe some potential childhood trauma that she's dealing with, especially tough family dynamics and relationships, and trying to deal with the fact that her brother wants her to sacrifice herself, and trying to come to terms with that and move on. And maybe there's political scheming on her front, I don't know. And then there's Priya, who just wants to do the best she can for everybody around her. She's just this very giving, sweet soul who gets sent to clean the temple and meets Malini, and things go from there. So it's just so good. If you like adult political fantasy, if you like lush but not overly done, not purple prose, but you like lush descriptions, you like cool nature magic, you want non-European based fantasy by a woman of color, then this was phenomenal. Like from the jump, I was just hooked by, there's so many mysteries of why is Malini here? What happened? Why is she doing the things that she's doing? How did Priya end up in the position that she's at? Where does she come from? What happened to her? And we just get all these fun sprinklings of information about the world building and the back history of the characters. And seeing Priya and Malini interact is really fascinating. But I really love those characters, but I'll come back to that in the character section. But this book is just phenomenal. So if any of that sounds good to you at all, you should definitely check out The Jasmine Throne. It is just going to be a trilogy. The first two books are currently available. They've been coming out one a year. So book 1 came out last year, book 2 came out this year. So I'm assuming book 3 will be next year. So this is a great time to jump on this trilogy. But now we'll jump into the individual parts of this review. So we'll start with part Brazilian Portuguese. And that would be the magic and world building. So the magic is this cool nature-based magic. People somehow interact with these deathless waters because sometime in the previous history there were maybe some beings involved. So that is really fascinating, but it basically gives them this kind of communal understanding of nature. They can summon vines from the ground, open holes in the ground. They can do all kinds of cool nature magic. And so I haven't seen much nature-based magic in adult fantasy. I can't even think of another book off the top of my head that has cool naturey magic. So it's fantastic. The world building is done in such an awesome way. So if you don't like info dumping, then you will love the Jasmine Throne, because it's given to you in these titillating little morsels that are just like sprinkled throughout that give you just enough information, and then you keep being sucked in deeper and deeper because you realize how rich and deep the lore of this world really is. And so it's just and then there is also like the political atmosphere, because there are themes of colonialism and expansion and resistance to this overreaching empire led by this kind of despotic, psychopathic dictator. And so, I mean, obviously he's crazy. He wants to burn his sister alive. But if you are one of those people who love show, don't tell, this world building is going to be shown to you. You're never going to be like reading on the wall, colonialism is bad. You're just going to get those vibes. You're going to understand. And it is impeccably done. And I don't have much more to say about the magic and world building. I think a lot of it is kind of the mystery of it and kind of finding it out for yourself. So with that, we will move on to part deux, French. And that would be the characters. The main characters are Malini, Priya, and Bhumika. And they are all very distinct. Bhumika is this kind of middle-aged woman who is trying to work within the system to make life for her people as good as she can. We then have the optimistic Priya, who just tries to make everybody happy and gives everything she has. And then we have Malini, who is kind of the more manipulative character. She comes from a very privileged background because she is one of the princesses of this expanding empire. And so she knows the political game, and she's kind of willing to do whatever she needs to in order to get out of the kind of prison situation we find her in. But they're all such nuanced characters. You learn more about their backstories. You kind of feel for them. You know what their motivations are, and it's just also well done. And then their interactions, especially between Priya and Malini, are so interesting because there's maybe layers of a sapphic romance building there, but they're both not like overly emotional people. So just like the kind of dynamics at play are just fascinating. And Bhumika is the MVP. Like, I love her, and I can't wait to see more of her in book 2. And so that will bring us into part tres, Spanish. And that is the plot. And so the plot is, in the first half of the book, we are kind of slow building. We're getting to know our characters, our world. We're very much laying out the situation and the landscape of what's going on in this world. And in the second half, things kind of hit the fan. And so it ends up being, I think, a very interesting tale of trying to build a resistance against this kind of psychotic empire that's building. And it ends up being this really interesting resistance story. And just, it's so good, but I don't want to give too much of the plot away. I think I've given you enough plot details for you to kind of decide whether or not this book sounds good to you. It is everything, and I would highly recommend you check out the Jasmine Throne ASAP. If anything I've said sounds even remotely interesting, it is so good, and not enough people are talking about it. It is just, read it. But that will kind of wrap it up for this review. Let me know in the comments down below, have you read the Jasmine Throne? Are you going to? Have I convinced you? I'd love to hear from you down in those comments. While you're down there, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already for more bookish shenanigans like this. And if you want to leave an emoji, why don't you leave... Let's stay consistent, shall we? So it's the Jasmine Throne, so maybe leave a jasmine flower or a vine or something naturey. Something naturey to celebrate the nature magic. But that will do it. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!